So here's just some solutions that we've come up with over the years. First of all, be very clear about your aims before you start. Know why it is you want to meet. And I think the clearer we can be in explaining to people and say, this is what we're going to achieve. We are going to get together because we want to clear up the litter in the local park, and we think as Christians and Muslims that's a good thing to do, and all we're going to do on the day is get together, clear up the litter, and then go and have a meal together at McDonald's or wherever it is you're going to go. But being able to reassure those gatekeepers, say this is what is going to happen, this is why it is going to happen, we've thought about it, we've worked it through, this is why as Christians we're doing it, this is why as Muslims we're doing it, is really important. Different communities will have different concerns. In my experience, the Christians tend to have concerns to do with theology, as in, you know, should we be doing evangelism, is this what the Bible tells me to do? Most Muslims tend to have concerns more to do with, if you like, sociology. Is this, should we be getting involved from this point of view? Will our community be invaded? Will we lose our identity? Those kind of concerns are ones that I've heard more often from the Muslim community, not theology to do with interpretation of the Quran. So we need to understand what are the different concerns and how do we sort of understand these and address these. We need to speak to the people about their concerns. Will there be halal food? Is usually the only thing I get asked from Muslim parents, actually. Sometimes it's, will there be single-sex activities? Those are the concerns, so I need to address those. Christian parents never ask me that. But they'll say, what does the Bible say? Why aren't you doing this bit? So different concerns. So we have to address those, and the clearer we can be, the more work we can do beforehand, the easier that will be. But it won't be easy. I reckon that the groups that I've helped, the groups that I've set up, from the initial, wouldn't it be good to get some teenagers together conversation, to the teenagers actually meeting, usually takes 18 months. Know where to meet Muslim and Christian young people. This is stuff we've alluded to. The two communities are different. If I want to find Christians, the easiest place to find Christian young people is to go to churches and say, can I come and talk to your youth group? That's kind of the way it works. However, if I want to find Muslim young people, if I turn up to a mosque and say, can I talk to your youth group? Most mosques will look at me and go, which youth group's that then? Mosques tend not to have youth groups in the same way that churches do. But I know that if I go to any number of the secondary schools in Birmingham and say, can I meet with some really keen Muslims? They'll say, yeah, we've got hundreds. Our school is full of Muslims, not all of whom are keen by any means, but we can find you some quite easily. I don't know of any school in Birmingham that has got a large percentage of keen Christian pupils in. So I can't go to schools in the same way and find Christians, but I can recruit Muslims through schools. And that's the way over the last 8 years we've almost always worked. And the most successful ones have come through that, where the schools have said, we can bring a group who all know each other, they're all friends. A church has said, we can bring a group, they all know each other, they're all friends. So we've eventually got two equal groups. Now you may find that's different. And we've tried more recently to work through a mosque. And we've had some success, but we actually found in the end it's got very difficult because there isn't the structure of youth work kind of structure for someone to say, I know who all the young people are, I know their addresses, I know what... That doesn't exist in the way that it does in churches on the whole. And know what everyone means by young people. If I go to most of the churches I work with and say, can I talk to young people? I meet teenagers. I go to the mosque and say, can I talk to young people? I meet the 25-year-olds. Actually, and when I'm training Christian youth workers, I say Asian young people are older than white young people. Create a safe space. This thing about fear. When you get together, people are feeling intimidated. Usually people come to my events, if it's the first one they've been to, and the Christians will come and sit down and look worried, and the Muslims will come and sit down in a different line and look worried, and you think, what a day have we got? By the end, they're all laughing and mucking about together and exchanging text numbers and mobile numbers and Facebook details and whatever. But at the start, there's a sense of fear. So we work really hard on creating a safe space. What kind of venue are we going to use? We try and use, if it's a first contact, a neutral venue. We don't meet in a mosque, we don't meet in a church, we meet somewhere where everyone comes as a visitor. Because you know what it's like, if you're a visitor to someone else's home, you're always slightly on the back foot, aren't you? Do I sit down here? Do I put my cup on the floor? Whereas if you're at home, you're completely relaxed. It's not completely equal. Whereas if you all come to some kind of venue that you've booked and everyone's kind of coming as a visitor, you're all on the same footing. It's equal. Make sure that the language and the activities you use help the participants to feel safe throughout the event. After lunch, we're going to look at what we call our guidelines for dialogue, which is all about creating a safe environment. So you need to think through, and you'll know the community you work with, do you have music playing when people come in? Now, most of the young people I know want to have music playing because otherwise it feels a bit deadly when you walk in. But I know some who've come to me and said, but music's forbidden in Islam, we shouldn't have it. Now that will depend on who you're working with. You'll need to work that out and find out. What activities are you going to have? Ones that, yes, good youth work activities, but ones that are safe. So fun kind of warm-up things, but not too much physical contact, or none at all really. Creating this safe environment. It doesn't reduce the challenge, but creates a safe environment for the young people to be challenged. And this whole thing, working very hard at, when you come in, your needs will be met. And that's our next kind of space. Cater for everyone's needs. Will there be prayer times for both Muslims and Christians? Or will one group feel a bit, oh, well, the other group have been looked after, but no one seems to worry about me? And I've met that time and time again, where one group feels, well, everyone's made provision for the others, but no one seems to have thought about what my provision is. Muslims need to eat halal food. Some Christians are quite happy to eat halal food. Some will say, actually, I have a problem with that, either theologically or for other reasons. Where's the alternative? Have my needs been catered for? Will you play music? And even, it's not just about Christians, what about people with special needs? Actually, in both our communities, we have people come along with other special needs. What about their needs? We had a lad come on one of our events who got cystic fibrosis. How do we help him to participate as a full member? And he was able to, and has been able to do sort of really good things. So how do we help people to engage fully? Ultimately, I would say, do good youth work. And I've got this little phrase I use, that we should do good work. We should do good youth work with Muslims and Christians together, not a formal dialogue meeting with teenagers present. Do you know the difference? Yeah? Good youth work. All the things that any good youth work, but when people come along and see events that I'm running, they often kind of go, is that it? Because it's not rocket science. We're not inventing new youth work activities. We're just doing them in a way that allows Christians and Muslims to meet. You don't need to start thinking, I've got to find whole new ways of doing youth work. So, warm-up activities, games, 10-pin bowling, rock climbing, all those things. Do those things. Do good youth work. What teenagers on the whole don't want to do is sit like you're sitting now, looking at some dull, tall, thin chap in a stripy shirt talking at them, actually, as you know. When people say to me, so do you take these groups and visit a mosque and a church? And I say no. Because most 14-year-olds don't want to spend a Saturday afternoon visiting a mosque or a church. Sad though we might feel that is, most want to go bowling, actually, so we go bowling.
I think the other thing that's really important in terms of sensitivity, when we talk about practical solutions, this idea of modelling good practice. So especially where we're looking at kind of training to do, where there's a mixed group of Christians and Muslims, it's always useful to have trainers that are Christian and that are Muslim. It sounds like a very simple thing, but I think when you see it in practice, it actually gives young people a sense of, well, actually I feel safe because there are two leaders, or call them leaders, or just people who are training or leading a group that are of two different faiths. So if I've got questions, I can go to the Muslim person, or if I've got questions, I can go to the Christian youth worker, leader, trainer. And I think that is absolutely essential.
Understand the differences between Christian and Muslim expectations for youth work, and my understanding of the differences just keeps on growing. So I knew for a long time that mosques didn't have youth groups and churches did, and there were schools full of Muslims and not schools full of Christians. I'd kind of got that. But increasingly I've understood things. What's the philosophy of youth work? What are people trying to achieve through this youth work? Now, when I talk to lots of Muslim youth workers, and Muslim friends can correct if I'm wrong, but there's lots of talk about knowledge. To be a good Muslim, you're growing knowledge, you're learning, you're understanding. So there's lots about, we want to make sure it's educational, to learn. Lots of Christian youth workers talk not knowledge, but relationships. It's relational youth work. Now, actually, Muslim youth workers also do relationships, and Christians would also do knowledge, but the starting points are actually quite different. Now, you can do both, but you need to recognise that people are coming with quite a different philosophy of what youth work's about. How formal or educational will your events be? This is something that I picked up recently, because when you talk to churches, it's all very informal. This is informal education. And a lot of churches are very busy. The ones that have got youth groups there, there is a lot for Christian young people to do. So to add in something else that's already been raised, why should I do this when I've already got a whole youth programme of exciting days out once a week for the next 6 months already in my diary? I'm already busy. Whereas when I talk to Muslim young people, some of them have got great social lives, but some say great because actually there isn't much to do. So instantly you've got a difference there.
Can I just add something in terms of, again, looking at structures? And historically the mosque was always considered to be a place, it wasn't just for worship, it was a community space where you had discussions, there was a vibrancy, it was about young people, it was about women. For Muslims in particular that came over to this country, it was about re-establishing structures. Personally, what I see right now is almost a revolution taking place. So what you've got now are younger members who are seriously questioning the role of the mosque. And what you now have at places like in Bradford, the Madani Mosque, which is a purpose-built building that is not just about prayers 5 times a day, it's equally about knowledge, but it's also about activities for young people. It's also about creating a space where people of faith and no faith can come and actually see what happens and how the mosque it functions on a daily basis. So those sorts of things are changing. And what I found is that the fact that the mosque is opening up its doors means that it's also opening up the space for this type of dialogue to take place, interfaith dialogue especially. So you've got, in those cases, people from predominantly small, predominantly white areas that have had very little interactions in places like Bradford or Birmingham, or have encountered diversity, coming to these places and telephoning and saying, well, actually, we've never been to a mosque, we want to have these sorts of interactions, can you help us? Whereas probably 10 years down the line, or even a couple of years down the line, that wasn't always possible.